2014, she received the Nivano Peace Prize for her interfaith peace efforts. She's also the author of several books, including My Journey Through Time, The Untold Story of Sita, When the Bright Moon Rises, Rukmini and the Turning of Time, and To Dance with Akinis. So welcome, Denaji. We're happy to have you at this event today. Next, we also have with us Dr. Sailesh Nayak, who is currently the director of National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bengaluru. He's also the Life Trustee of India International Center, New Delhi, and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Indian Society of Remote Sensing, Dehradun. Dr. Nayak obtained his PhD in geology from the MS University of Baroda in 1980. He served as Secretary of the Ministry of Earth Sciences from 2007 to 2015 and provided leadership for programs related to Earth System Sciences. He's also the former Chancellor of TERI, Teri School of Advanced Studies in New Delhi. His current research interests include building strategy for blue economy, sustainable development, and promoting research in Indian Ocean and polar regions. Notably, he set up the state-of-the-art tsunami warning system for the Indian Ocean in 2007 and provided tsunami advisories to the Indian Ocean rim countries. He was conferred the prestigious ISC Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Award 2012 and Bhaskar Award for 2009 for his outstanding contributions in remote sensing and GIS. He has published approximately 190 papers in peer-reviewed journals. The Government of India awarded him the Civilian Honor Padma Shri in recognition of his outstanding contributions in the field of science and engineering. We are privileged to have you, sir, this evening. And finally, we also have with us Varun Jainji. He is the 5th generation publisher at Motilal Banarsidass Publishing House, a renowned name in Indological publishing since 1903. Carrying forward a legacy of over a century old, Varun has taken up the responsibility of preserving and promoting India's rich philosophical, spiritual, and cultural heritage through scholarly works. Under his leadership and with the guidance of his father, Rajendra Prakash Jainji, the publishing house continues to serve as a cornerstone for researchers, academicians, and readers worldwide interested in Indian knowledge systems. Motilal Banarsidass remains a pioneering institution dedicated to excellence in the field of Indology. We are actually quite privileged that MLBD was the publisher for a book, Sapta Svara, as well. So thank you, Varunji. You're welcome. I would also just like to have a quick welcome to Rajiv Kuchal. He's also here. He's a venture capitalist. He's an evangelist. He has been instrumental in the early development of the SaptaSvara book. We would like to maybe begin with a quick, a book showcasing of the book cover before we start off with the proceedings. So Denaji, I'll just do this, request you to do these honors. I'll just share the screen and we'll do like a virtual, unfurling of the book cover for all the audience here. So there, for your folks, that's the book cover of the book SaptaSvara, which is also now available on MLBD site and on the Amazon site as well. To begin with, Denaji, I'll reach out to you. You have also written the foreword for the book, and I request you to maybe share some of your reflections on the book.
Thank you. First, I want to congratulate Raghu and Nandini for creating this jewel of a book. There's so much packed into it. Each chapter takes you deeper and deeper into the internal life. And it's beautiful because it's both an outer journey and an inner journey, and they reflect each other. So it's a journey into the Silent Valley where the descriptions are so vivid, you feel like you are there. You are seeing the animal life. You are hearing the animal life. You are with the trees. And yet every aspect of nature points to something internal, to our patterns of thinking. And throughout the book, you come to understand more deeply the relationship between the inner and outer worlds, and you can't see them as separate anymore. And there are just so many jewels packed into this. You go back and forth between the outer landscape and the inner landscape, and see that disturbances on the outside reflect something internally. Disturbances on the inside are reflected externally. It's a complete mirroring. And it changes the way you look at events in your life because you begin to connect them to your internal experiences. I just want to point out one of the many, many gems that are in there. Raghu talks about the key values, the foundation for sadhana, the elements, matri, karma, dharma, jnana, ramya, yoga, and abhasya. But jnana, we mostly think about as knowledge. But as he shows us, it's the transformation that comes about through knowledge. Just having that information doesn't get you very far. It's the insights and the transformation that takes place through having that knowledge. So that was a very important point to me because so often we think of jnana as just having knowledge, and we think of a jnani as someone who knows the scriptures and just knows so much about the tradition, but it's the inner transformation. And that's just one aspect. All of these other elements of the dharmic life have a profound aspect to them. So often we talk about them in just the simplest sense, without going more deeply into what the meaning is. And again, it's experiences in the outer world that trigger this understanding. Seeing the flight of birds, seeing a pattern in nature, makes you understand a pattern with your own thinking. So it's a journey that one can take again and again, that one does take again and again. And I think it shows that one has to have a balance between the outer and the inner. And it's the journey toward that balance that leads us forward in our sadhana. So, this is a book that is meant to be read again and again so that one can go deeper and deeper into the meaning.
Thank you very much, Demaji. Raghu, I only wonder any reflections.
No, really.
Thank you, Dinaji. The inner and the outer, I think, has been one theme that, even as we worked with the book, was a constant reminder of how one brings together and sees this together. I move to Sailesh ji now, Dr. Sailesh. If you can perhaps, spend a few minutes talking to us about your impressions about the book.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this. And thank you very much for having me for this very important function. First of all, I would like to congratulate Raghuji, Ankush, you, and Nandini for coming out with a very novel way. I mean, I am not from this field, so I find it a quite novel way to understand the Indic wisdom and how you can relate the nature with your inner self and the different aspects which described into 7 different chapters about the yoga and abhyas and maitri and all sorts of things. It's really good for the people who are trying to understand themselves. I think the major thing which for any leadership is to first understand yourself, and I think the way you have tried to relate with oneself, with the nature, is really amazing. I mean, I could never imagine that this kind of a relationship could be built. And I'm sure that this book would be extremely useful for all the people who are even at the education field, who are teaching different aspects of the leadership, as well as those who are at the middle level and the earlier in career, to understand that to grow further, it's very important that you understand yourself first, and accordingly you take it forward. So it's a really amazing book, and I must again compliment you all three for coming out with such a novel idea. And I'm sure that this book would be very useful to researchers, the educationers, the trainers, the students, and everybody. So thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Shailaji, we're also hoping that the more people understand their inner landscape and find the beauty within, we will deal with our environment in a much better way, sir.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's a contribution to your field also in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. I move to Varunji now. Varunji, of course, has been instrumental. He has been supporting us with the process of publication of the book as well. And we've been discussing about the the whole the importance of how our own the world view in a sense has to be now. It's so important, especially in these times, for it to be anchored in a dharmic context, and how MLBD has been playing this role for several years now, almost a century. So Varunji, I'm just passing this to you now in terms of your experience of the book, and also how did you go about choosing SaptaSvara as one of the books that you would like to take forward as well.
Right. Good evening, everyone. It's a true honor to be here today on behalf of Motilal Banarsidass Publishing House to celebrate the release of a deeply insightful and timely work, SaptaSvara, Discovering the Rhythm of Life, authored by Raghu Anant Narayanan, Nandini Murli, and Ankush Vij, with a foreword by the esteemed Dana Merriam. At Motilal Banarsidass, we have always believed in publishing works that blend ancient wisdom with contemporary relevance. And SaptaSvara does exactly that. This book invites readers on a journey of inner alignment, drawing from Indian traditions, personal inquiry, and systemic understanding. It resonates with our core mission to support works that awaken consciousness, encourage self-reflection, and bridge the sacred with the everyday. We are proud to have partnered with the authors in bringing this unique and powerful work into the world. I would like to thank Raghuji, Nandini and Ankushji for trusting us with their vision, and to Dana Merriam for lending her voice and perspective in the foreword. May SaptaSvara find its rhythm in the lives of many, and may it inspire readers to discover their own inner harmony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Varunji,
Yes,
for sharing the
we
vision.
hope that will happen, Varunji.
Right, thank you.
Arti, now perhaps it might be nice to have.
I don't know where Rajiv is.
Rajiv is in this.
Yeah, I am very much here.
So can you just share a few words, Rajiv? So before we, as authors, we start our.
Yeah, sure. No, I think I've known Raghu for a long time, but I think I truly discovered Raghu and the Indic wisdom now about 7-8 years back. And till then, since then, our focus has been to see how we can get Raghu's work in a way which is reachable to more and more people, both in terms of his writing as well as in the terms of the practice. And I'm glad. I think it took a little while, and we did see, we ran some SaptaSvara programs in some of the corporates. So, what is coming out is not just theoretical. It's something which we ran, and we found the feedback we got from the managers there was just extremely good. They related a lot to what was being spoke about. So I'm glad that it has come out. I'm glad it is in a manner which is accessible and readable to many. And that is the role which Ankush and Nandini had, to make sure you take ideas from Raghu, but don't let him write, so that more people can understand. So once again, congratulations to all three of you and Varunji for bringing it out.
Thanks a lot, Rajiv.
Thank you, Rajiv. So I guess now we can I can move to my co-authors. Raghu, of course, along with Sashi, who inspired the whole idea. And of course, this is something, SaptaSvara is something that, Raghu has been working with as a practice maybe for more than a decade, about 15 years. So maybe Raghu, we can start off by, talking about what's the origin of SaptaSvara. How did, SaptaSvara come about as an idea for you?
Yeah, good to go a little bit down memory lane, no? Actually started quite a while back, maybe 2-3 decades back, I don't remember, when I was working with the family organization, and one of the young entrepreneurs who was taking over challenged me. I think partly he was pulling my legs, saying, "You're talking so much about Indian stuff. Give me something simple because very complicated. Rajiv will love this." So I said, "I'll come back to you." And then, in the modern today's language, these 7 words got channeled to me. When I was sitting with this question, and after my asana and pranayama, suddenly these 7 words kind of came together in my mind. And then I started working with them. And then a couple of very interesting things happened. In about a week or 10 days after I got this, just in a frenzy, for 1 week, I sat and wrote a whole manual of where each word comes in the Yoga Sutra, what are the other ideas from the Yoga Sutra that look at these and things like that. And later it struck me that these 7 words actually also reflect the movement in the chakras. So I was quite thrilled with all this. And then I shared this idea with a few people. Now, Amukta helped me in that. I shared it with the Sharda Jain, who is a very well-known philosopher, then Anmol, who's done a lot of work in Indian theater. And they were very happy. And they said that these 7 words really captures the whole thing. And Saiji, I don't know, he's there, I can't see. He took the book to a friend of his who's a very advanced upasaka, who kept it at the feet of the mother. And the next morning he said, everything is fine. The last word I had used was sadhana. He said, just change that to abhyasa. So I changed that to abhyasa, which is also from the Yoga Sutra. So that's how it started. And then we've done several programs. One of the first set of programs we did was actually with Aditya Panda's organization, where Saiji and Sashi actually worked with it in Hindi. And those words are also very beautiful. And then with educational institutions, with NGOs, then organizations, and so on, till Nandini and Ankush came up and said, hey, let's see how to make it into a book. And Rajiv helped us in the process. He was very enthusiastic. So now we have the book, and Varunji has agreed to publish it for us, which is great. And Dina's feedback was wonderful. It really helped us to, as an author, coming from her was great. So this is where we are now.
It's interesting as to how this is, as an idea or as a set of ideas, this seems to have found, a resonance in so many contexts. So there is the organizational, context. There is the educators. We've done some work with educators with SaptaSvara. There is the social workspace or the non-profit as a workspace as well. And individuals, I was someone who actually experienced SaptaSvara as an individual first, and it was like a new lens from which to look at my own inner. So there's also this very universal in the way it has applied to individual as well as group contexts.
Yeah, Sahiti and Kavita has done a lot of work with teachers and parents using this.
Maybe at this point, I'll bring in Nandini. Nandini, maybe we can go back, maybe back in early or mid of 2021. we say we'll start. Let's look at the work and say how do we build a narrative or almost like a thread of stories and these various reflections around it. I love that process, to be honest, but I just thought I want to hear it more from as how you weave the whole narrative for us.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ankush, for asking me that. First, I had done the Sapta Svara, as I've done a lot of Ritambhara programs. So it was very important for me, and therefore it was very easy for me that we needed to use an experiential lens for this narrative. And I was also very clear that maybe if we had it in a very, like a manual, like an instruction manual, it wouldn't be very, very appealing. So the idea was to, well, while the head was very important, the narrative had to emerge from the heart. So that was the narrative process which went into it. And I love the forests. And that's where I find myself. Given a choice, I would live more often in the forest than in urban spaces. I'd like to think that I've strayed into urban spaces. So the forest is, for me, a very primal space. It's a very primordial space. It's also a space which reverberates with energy. And so the whole narrative arc of SaptaSvara, we didn't have to think very consciously about it, and the Silent Valley is one of my favorite places on planet Earth. So I remember having this discussion with Raghu and you about setting this whole narrative in the forest. And the forest is a metaphor, as Dana very perceptively picked up. It's a metaphor for the inner and the outer. And also, the Indic civilization has been a forest civilization. The forest, the Aranyaka, it's a riverine civilization. So we have the Kuntipura river, which flows through the Silent Valley. So these were all metaphors. For me, the forest was a metaphor for going inwards, the richly layered process of discovering oneself. So everything just fell into place. So for me, writing the whole thing was a very organic process. I really loved the weekly discussions with Raghu and you, chapter by chapter, because those inputs were very, very important. So, and that had to be woven very, very organically into the whole process. And a very important aspect of the Saptasvara while writing it was, I think I owe this particular insight to my long discussions with Sashi on the process of creativity. How is creativity viewed in the Indian context, which is particularly the swara of Ramya? So, creation has to emerge. I mean, it emerges from a space of great joy and abandon, So the joyfulness and choicefulness, every chapter was a joy to write, It just emerged like a forest stream, just emerging from somewhere, gurgling, gushing, finding its way to source. So the whole process of writing was very organic, very, very seamless. And and I just loved the to and froing between the two of you, and just loved the creative space and freedom. So that was very, very important. There were no injunctions I had to, that had to be followed. So, and then the to and froing that happened between the three of us, and here we are.
I remember the part where we used to have these calls and we would then, contemplate when we have dialogues around each of these results. So in one way, in my mind, it was as if the book was almost writing itself and building on one of these ideas. And usually the reflective time that we would have in the intervening calls, it was as if for me personally, I felt I was basically at that point getting back to corporate spaces after having spent a while away, and it was almost rewiring. Some of these conversations were actually rewiring or rewriting my narrative of what that integrated workspace would look like. It was really amazing set of conversations and experiences, the churning around it. was very beautiful for me.
One more aspect I would like to add is that situating the Saptasvara in a very contemporary context, situating Indic wisdom in a very contemporary context and making it so accessible and relevant to the times in which we live in. That is actually very challenging, you know, because it's easy to be very esoteric, very, very abstruse, but how do you make it accessible without diluting the concepts? So for me, that was actually a challenge. It was a lovely challenge, but yeah.
Saras is also here. Hi, Saras. I remember actually the first Saptasvara experience that I had was in December 2016. It was at Saras's Yoga Vahini Center. And Raghu had visited Chennai at that point, and we were in a 3.5 day, 4 day program. And how it left me, I was just thinking about it, you know, as we were getting ready for this event. And I was looking at how it at that point was such a refreshing experience. It gave me almost like a lens to look back, you know, to look at two things primarily. One is my own inner, in a sense, configuration, inner drama. What are these various voices, you know, that occupy my inner space? And then, of course, the engagement as to where am I coming from, and to have that, you know, at, you know, as much as, you know, working with Raghu and in the Yoga Vahini space was quite an experience for me. And that started for me almost like a one thing led to the other, you know, one question led, and it's like almost this whole, you know, learning of the learning that lies between one and the other question. That kind of series started for me. It was lovely to have that session back in Chennai. Good to see you, Saras, and Narendraji as well.
I'm really looking forward to reading the book. I was wondering if you can just read some excerpts from the book, read out. That will be good.
Nandini should do that, no?
Yeah.
Yes. I've got I've located it. So should I just read a para or two?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first chapter, this is We Lose the Precious to Discover the Priceless. Silent Valley National Park, Kerala, India. Ramya continued her walk, her footsteps crunching on the gravel of the seldom trodden forest path. She was surrounded by tall, stately trees, dense tropical undergrowth, a lush green canopy, and the orchestra of cicadas, an environment that felt serene and Waldenesque, offering inspiration. Ramya was in Silent Valley National Park in northwestern Palakkad, Kerala. The park, covering 148 square kilometers of buffer zone and 90 square kilometers of core area known as Sairandri, was the heart of India's first successful people's conservation movement. Growing up in the 1970s in Chennai, then known as Madras, Ramya was captivated by the vibrant green activism of the Save Silent Valley campaign and longed to visit the area someday. It took her over 4 decades to fulfill the wish, and finally she arrived under circumstances she could never have anticipated. She soon found a grassy mound near a forest stream and decided to rest, stretching her tired limbs like a wild feline. On a nearby treetop, she spotted the elusive lion-tailed macaque, a monkey native to the Western Ghats that lives exclusively in the high canopy. Shy and hard to spot, these macaques are usually detected by sound rather than sight. The macaque squinted at her from the foliage, its eyes like pinpoints of laser light. In a flash, it performed an acrobatic somersault, leaping across branches with a perfect ease of balance, knowing exactly when to hold on and when to let go. The monkey seemed boneless and light, and Ramya envied its freedom from baggage, whether excessive or essential. Unlike the macaque, she felt weighed down by a lifetime of burdens. Over to you, Ankush.
That was interesting, Nandini. Yeah. Looks like that's the metaphor for the whole book, yeah, actually.
Yes, Raghu, it is.
Yeah, freely moving from one rasa to another.
Yeah.
Ankush, maybe you can share how it made sense to you from a organizational context. You just alluded to it, no?
Yeah. So it might help to give a little bit of a background. So for me, I think around the time that I began looking at some of this work, I was actually, at a point in my career, midpoint in my career, about 35, 37-ish period, where I felt I had all those specifications that you would normally get, saying that, if you do this, if you check this particular box, you're okay, you've done well. And I seem to have checked most of those boxes. But I generally just felt a little bit of almost an emptiness of some sort of disillusionment of some sort. And it's around the time when I actually started to see how it affects me, how it starts to affect people around me, is when I realized I need to really see more. There's something there that is not seen or understood. That's the time when Sapta Svara happened. I won't go into more of how it happened, but it happened and I was there. It was one of the first programs that I worked with. Like I was saying earlier, it gave me a certain lens to see what was happening to me then. So in a sense, all these ideas of Maitri. So can I actually be first a friend to myself? Maitri as a idea. Usually one would think of the other and then say Maitri, but could I first be just a mitra to myself? That was a huge threshold for me. And then from there started this whole exploration of saying, where are my actions coming from? What are these voices that dominate my responses to these external triggers? And like I was saying earlier, one thing led to another. There were several references found. So some of these ideas of SaptaSvara are actually found in Upanishads and Yoga Sutra. And I had no clue what an Upanishad was. Absolutely. I studied 7 years of age, but I had no idea what an Upanishad was. And it was also, it's at one level a little embarrassing because I think in one sense, that's one inheritance that, which is not tangible. I mean, it's of course there in some number of pages, but it's so much intangible that's available for me to claim that I had never accessed. And that's what led me on almost like an exploration for the next 3 or 4 years. I just immersed myself in the study of Upanishads, the study of yoga. That was around the time, some of these studies were actually concluding is when COVID hit, and I almost also around the same time got back to work. And I said, now is where this gets tested, right? So now when I go back to my workspaces and systems, how do I operate Maitri? In conversations with my peers, conversations with my bosses, with my clients. I've been an M&A, mergers and acquisition negotiator, and I used to think of myself as a modern Kshatriya who's acquiring companies. And I would think, when I think of them, usually it would be some sort of antagonizing from day one, from moment one. I'm actually just seeing them as adversaries. And what would that do to me? So a lot of that changed, and people around me would find it very strange. And I took a while to adjust to it too, and it's still adjusting. And that became like a very interesting. So one of the things that I looked at, Raghu, from an M&A standpoint, is that a lot of mergers and acquisitions in India and a lot of it in UK actually statistically failed. And the reason attributed was not to do with product fitment or strategic fitment or synergies not met, etc. It was more to do with people not being able to really align together. And that became one of my areas of, almost like an area of pursuit to say, can I really look at this? Can I look at when two companies come together, can it actually be two organizations, two set of people as a collective coming together? And how do they really look at this whole systemic, phenomenon that is at play? So SaptaSvara, in a sense, also opened that vista for me. The idea of jnana was again very, very interesting because did my knowledge transform me as an individual was another question that I was left with in one of our conversations about jnana when we were writing that particular chapter. And of course, towards the end, as we looked at abhyasa, it's to how we bring all of these ideas together, and this whole idea of abhyasa and vairagya that came together for me in that, in that section as we looked at it deeply. So there's a lot of relevance and a lot of resonance that I see for people in their own work, in their own spaces as well, and also in their engagements in systemic spaces where SaptaSvara can kind of shed light.
Nandini, maybe you should just read out those definitions now. What is Maitri and whatever we have said now, the practice, whatever, right? Because that's an important part of it.
Okay, 1 minute. Let me.
And it's not just a exposition, but tells you how to reflect on it and what it means and so on.
I just noticed Saiji now. Saiji, namaste. Saiji was one of the people back in 2017 who left me with the idea of not leaving something for the other, moving on to one thing by, abandoning the other, but more of integrating. How do you integrate? And that idea stayed with me over the years as I looked at, index systems as well as, some of our contemporary works.
Yeah, some of my early testings, Saji and I worked with a Hindi version in Aditya Handa's company. You want to share a couple of words about it, Saji?
Yeah, thanks for the kind words, Raghu. I joined as we were completing, the portion about when Nayak was completing. That's when I joined. So you were mentioning about my Guruji also, who guided you on to looking at sadhana differently, if I remember it right. So the SaptaSvara Hindi version was a challenge for both for me and Shashi as we were delivering it in Ahmedabad for an NGO called Purna Kumbha, which is the NGO run by the younger Hunter. So it was, so I think it was very, but all the participants, because they are all working in the grassroots, they connected it very, very well. Maitri and all the other, Jnana, yoga. So it was a very enlivening and inspiring experience. Of course, that I was working with Shashi after maybe a decade and a half. So it was a wonderful experience. Thank you.
I'll just do the previous section. It says, this is the chapter on Maitri. Communication or the exchange between two people, or even between people and animals, can be helpful in clearing the way to end suffering, or it can complicate matters for both the sender and receiver. There are 4 ways we engage with people: friendliness, Maitri; compassion, Karuna; joy, Mudita; and equanimity, Upeksha. According to Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, when a person is experiencing sukham or happiness, we establish a relationship of friendliness. When the other person experiences dukkham, we offer karuna or compassion. When the person is performing punya or righteous action, we offer mudita or joyfulness. In yoga, punya refers to natural flow, and apunya refers to actions that impede or obstruct this naturalness. Hence, we offer mudita when a person experiences oneself dharmically. If someone is doing something hurtful, we step back and practice equanimity, upeksha. From this state of equanimity, we try to understand why the person is not acting from a place of compassion. We neither condemn nor condone the action. The conscious practice of each of these 4 responses to people and their actions helps each of us to experience shantam, which is a quiet, peaceful, and grounded state of mind. Only such a mind can aspire to act in a way that leads to satvika. It is to be noted that the action of the other person is observed and responded to. More importantly, the person is not judged. Therefore, a person is not good or bad. It's just that his or her action must be met with an appropriate response. The action which is destructive arises from limited thinking. Hence, it is important to understand that we understand that and not judge the person. It is not easy to look at the other person's action and not judge the person. The question to ask oneself is, how am I listening to you? If I'm listening with my senses more open, then the more deeply I would understand. Every interaction and every exchange that takes place between two people, there is pranic exchange or exchange of life force between the two individuals. Depending on the quality of exchange, I experience either flowering and unfolding, or I experience oppression and closing up. I'll just do the next para, which is very interesting. If the feeling is that of opening up, there is an experience of flowering, which is sukha. But by feeling closed down, there is an experience of dukkha. The suffix kam means space, therefore dukkham means the space which is constricted, and sukham means the space which is opening up. In offering a space for authentic self-expression of another person, both of us grow.
Yeah, of course, we hope that through this book, everybody grows, no? As we offer it to people. And we also grow. It's actually very nice, Nandini, listening to it being read out.
Maybe we should do an audio book.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Okay, we're almost drawing to a close of our session time. So as you all know, SaptaSvara is actually a practice. So it's something that we have been offering, that we have been doing for the last almost decade and a half, for Raghu even longer. And we at Ritambhara, the organization that offers SaptaSvara also as a program, as an open program for individuals, will actually be organizing an online SaptaSvara in July. And then there's another one which is like in-person retreat, which may come up sometime in September or December. The dates are yet to be finalized. But as and when these programs become the dates are more near us, we'll also reach out to you and see how we can engage through the practice of SaptaSvara. So I'd like to thank every one of you who's been able to come here, be with us on this occasion, the launch of the book. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you soon in so many of you will be interacting on these several spaces.
Yeah, please read the book and give us a feedback and whatever. You actually told me that one of the people who had read it, one of your friends you gave it to, said that the book reflects Ramya, which is super.
Yeah.
But also, I think we really hope it will reach young people, huh? People who are searching to understand what is India, because that was the challenge that Aditya handed through at me, How will you reach the younger mind types? And also, I'm very happy that the first program we did was in Hindi, not in English. I wish we had done many, many more in all the local languages.
In Tamil too, sitting in Kotagiri, not doing a Tamil SaptaSvara is an unacceptable scenario.
Correct. Agreed.
This is a worthy sankalpa for the group to take on from here, Saiji. All right, folks. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.